Good morning, all. Today we'll be discussing one of the very important topics and very commonly encountered condition, that is iron deficiency anemia. I'll be discussing this topic under the following heads, that is what is anemia, what are its symptoms, classification, iron deficiency anemia, and then we'll be dealing with iron, like what are its pharmacokinetic properties, and then the treatment part, in which we'll be looking at oral iron preparations and parenteral iron preparations. Now, what is anemia? Anemia is decrease in oxygen carrying capacity of blood. Okay, and this oxygen carrying capacity of blood is determined by hemoglobin content of the cells. So this, if there is decrease in hemoglobin concentration of the blood, naturally the oxygen carrying capacity of blood is reduced. And the characteristic features of anemia will be reduction in blood hemoglobin levels, as well as the number of circulating erythrocytes may also be reduced. Now the hematopoietic machinery, which is responsible for the synthesis of all these blood cells, is present in bone marrow. Okay, for the synthesis of all these cells and proper functioning of this hematopoietic machinery, we have some exogenous nutrients and endogenous factors, and these are required for the synthesis and proper functioning of hematopoietic machinery. The exogenous nutrients, which are to be supplied from extrinsic sources, that is from external sources, these are to be made available. These are iron, vitamin B12, folic acid, and these exogenous nutrients, these are called as hematinics. So whenever there is anemia, you give this hematinics as a supplement. Okay, and then you have endogenously derived growth factors. In this endogenously derived growth factors, you have colony stimulating factors, then erythropoietin, thrombopoietins, and various interleukins. Now, what is the normal hemoglobin concentration? In females, it's 12 to 16 gram per dl, whereas in males, it is 14 to 18 gram per dl. In newborn, it goes around 12 to 22 grams per dl. Okay. Now, anemia here is being classified according to its severity, like it's moderate or severe. It is according to the concentration of hemoglobin in the blood that we have classified anemia. So, why it is important to know the hemoglobin concentration, whether it is moderate anemia, severe anemia, according to that, we'll decide the treatment. Like, are we going to give oral iron preparations, or are we going to go to parenteral iron preparations? Whenever it is severe anemia, you need to go for parenteral iron preparations to recover the condition of the patient. Now, what are the symptoms of anemia? Anemia is going to affect whole body because the oxygen supply by blood is reduced. So naturally, whole body is going to get affected. You will have central symptoms. It is going to affect blood vessels, heart, spleen, your skin, respiratory, muscular. All the systems are affected. In central, you will get fatigue, dizziness, fainting. And blood vessels, there will be low blood pressure, heart, there will be palpitations, okay, chest pain, angina. The one with the red color, these are going to show symptoms in cases of severe anemia. Spleen, there will be enlargement of spleen. Eyes, it's paleness, okay. Here there will be pale eyes, okay. Then skin, there will be paleness, coldness, respiratory shortness of breath and weakness. Now, as far as classification of anemia, we'll go either with the morphology of RBCs, or there are etiological factors which are responsible for anemia. So, according to morphology of RBCs, you have normochromic, normocytic anemia. Then you have normochromic macrocytic anemia, and the last is hypochromic microcytic anemia. In this normochromic normocytic, the size of the cells is not affected. It's seen in cases of chronic diseases or hemolytic or aplastic anemia. In normochromic macrocytic, it is the larger cells. Okay, the cell sizes increase. It's seen in vitamin B12 deficiency, and it is seen in folate deficiency. Then we have hypochromic microcytic. These are the smaller cells, and there is hypochromia, and the RBC size is also reduced. And this is seen in cases of iron deficiency anemia, thalassemia, and okay. So this iron deficiency anemia. It shows the characteristic feature of hypochromic microcytic picture. Okay. So iron deficiency anemia, coming to iron deficiency anemia, it is the most common form of anemia. Okay. The causes of iron deficiency anemia, that is IDA, they relate either to blood loss or iron malabsorption, or there will be increased demand of iron by the body. And the peripheral blood smear is going to show this characteristic picture of RBCs, which is microcytic and hypochromic. There is hypochromia, and the cells, the RBCs are smaller in size, that is microcytic picture. Now the etiology, there is increased demand of iron. So when there is increased demand of iron during pregnancy, during lactation, or in growing children, the demand for iron is increased. Or there is iron loss. Iron loss, if there is any bleeding, there will be loss of iron. Okay. Or there is decreased iron intake, or even if the iron intake is proper, there is decreased absorption of iron. So this is the etiology of iron deficiency anemia. Now the clinical manifestations, we have already seen what are the manifestations of anemia. The same again are being shown here, that is fatigue, tachycardia, that is palpitations, okay, decreased intellectual performance, dermatologic manifestations, paleness, okay. These are the clinical manifestations. Now how this iron is distributed in the body? It's almost 66% of iron is present in hemoglobin, whereas other is stored as ferritin. 25% of iron is stored as ferritin and hemosiderin. 3% which is stored as myoglobin in muscles, and there is a parenchymal iron which is constitutes 6%. Okay. Now hemoglobin, it has a heme structure and there is globin chain. In this heme structure, there is iron porphyrin heme ring. Okay, there is iron porphyrin heme ring, and iron, it forms the nucleus of this iron porphyrin heme ring, which combines with globin chains and it forms hemoglobin. So iron is very important for the synthesis of hemoglobin. It is the nucleus of this heme ring. Okay. Now whenever there is lack of adequate iron, there will be smaller erythrocytes and insufficient hemoglobin, so giving the characteristic picture of microcytic hypochromic anemia. Okay. Now what is the daily requirement of iron? In adult males, it's 0.5 to 1 milligram, females 1 to 2 milligram, and it gets increased during pregnancy because there is increased demand during pregnancy and lactation. It is 3.5 milligrams. Now it is important that you know the sources of iron, because whenever the patient comes to you, naturally they are going to ask what changes are to be made in their food habits so as to improve their status of anemia. Okay, so what food should be consumed, what should not be consumed with the tablets or with the preparations or with the whatever treatment is being given. Are there going to be any interactions? So it's very important that you should have a first-hand knowledge of the sources of iron and what drug interactions can likely occur with iron. So the richer sources of iron, you all know, it's liver, egg yolk, oyster, dry beans, dry fruits, wheat germ and yeast. The medium source of iron, it's meat, chicken, fish, spinach, banana and apple. Whereas milk and milk products, these are the poor sources of iron. In fact, milk is going to affect the absorption of iron. Okay, because it forms a complex with iron and it is going to hamper the absorption of iron. Just very quickly we'll go through pharmacokinetics, because you should know what happens once the iron enters into the body, what all things occur with that in the pharmacokinetics. So first, iron will come from the diet and it gets absorbed by active transport. From the intestine it gets absorbed and then it will combine with this transferrin which acts as a transporter, and then it transports it to liver, to bone marrow for the synthesis of hemoglobin. Okay, here then it in spleen, this old RBCs get destroyed, this hemoglobin, there's breakdown, there's release of bilirubin, and this is lost into the bile and through kidney into urine. Okay, so this is fate of iron. Just shortly you should know what all things happen when there is intake of iron from the diet. Now you should also know what are the factors that will facilitate iron absorption, factors impeding iron absorption. So the first thing, acid, it favors absorption, because what will happen? It will cause reduction of this ferric form. Okay, ferric into ferrous form, because iron is absorbed in its ferrous form. So this is an important factor. Then reducing substances like ascorbic acid, this also helps in iron absorption, and even meat, it also by increasing the HCl secretion, it is going to help in iron absorption. Now what are the factors which will impede iron absorption? Alkalis, which are generally antacids, they will make iron insoluble and oppose its reduction. Phosphates, phytates, tetracyclines, they chelate iron basically. Presence of other foods in stomach, they are going to hamper absorption of iron. So whenever patient is diagnosed with iron deficiency anemia, you have two options in the treatment. One is oral iron therapy and the second is parenteral iron therapy. Okay, so according to severity of symptoms, what is the hemoglobin content of the patient, what is the tolerability, what is the compliance of the patient, all these factors will help in deciding the treatment in these patients. Now oral iron, in this route of iron administration, you have oral iron is available in the form of ferrous salts, and these are inexpensive. Iron content, it is quite higher iron content. Okay, and these are better absorbed than ferric salts, because the absorption of iron takes place in the ferrous form. Okay, so oral iron, these are available in ferrous salts. Okay, now these all are the oral iron preparations that are available. You have ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, ferrous fumarate. ferrous succinate and ferric citrate. Now ferrous sulfate, it has 20% hydrated salt whereas 32% dried salt. Ferrous gluconate 12% iron, fumarate, succinate almost 30% of iron. These are available in the form of 200 milligram tablet, okay, whereas gluconate is available in the form of 300 milligram tablet. Ferric citrate is an oral iron which has gained FDA approval for treatment of iron deficiency anemia in adults with CKD but not who are on dialysis. Okay. Now these oral iron preparations are available in various forms. These are tablets, capsules, you have sugar coated, uncoated tablets, you have drops and syrups. You have liquid formulations. Whenever liquid formulations are being given to children, they may stain teeth. So a special precaution that you should put it back on tongue, okay, so as to avoid staining of teeth. Now the dose of iron, a total of 200 milligram of elemental iron is given daily in 3 divided doses and they produce maximal hematopoietic response. Okay, whenever you need to give prophylactic therapy, you can give prophylactically, just you have to reduce the dose, 30 milligram of prophylactic doses given. Now the replenishment of iron stores, they require about 3 months. Okay, so once your hemoglobin concentration of the blood comes to a normal value, still you have to continue the drug therapy for more 3 months so as to replenish the iron stores that are being lost. Okay. Now absorption of iron is much better when it's taken on an empty stomach, but the side effects are more on empty stomach and therefore patients may take iron if they cannot tolerate the iron on an empty stomach, they may take it after food. Now parenteral iron therapy. Now parenteral iron therapy is reserved for patients naturally who are severely iron deficient, who are unable to tolerate or absorb oral iron, okay, or patients who have extensive chronic blood loss, there's severe anemia which cannot be treated with oral drug therapy, okay, and non-compliance to oral iron. It might be because of the side effects to oral iron therapy which gives the non-compliance by the patients. In such situations, we may start with parenteral iron therapy. Now these are the parenteral iron preparations. In this we have iron dextran, iron sorbitol citric acid complex, iron carbohydrate complex, sodium ferric gluconate. Now iron dextran can be given intravenously as well as intramuscularly. Iron sorbitol citric acid complex is given only intramuscularly. Similarly, iron carbohydrate complex is given intramuscularly. Sodium ferric gluconate, it is given intravenously and is said to have lesser risk of anaphylactic reaction than iron dextran. Now intramuscular therapy. In this iron dextran and iron sorbitol, they contain 50 milligrams per ml and recommended dose is 100 milligram daily. Okay, maximum dose that can be administered is 2 gram. Now it's important when you go for intramuscular therapy, this is very important. The drug is injected by Z-track technique. Now why it is important that you give this intramuscular injection by Z-track technique? It is to prevent the staining of skin. Okay, whenever you give deep intramuscular injection, you use Z-track technique. Okay, it means in this technique you just pull the upper skin and then you give the injection, okay, so that the point of insertion of the needle and the point where exactly the drug is injected, they form a Z track. It is not a straight track, it is a Z track, and it will prevent the staining of skin. In intravenous therapy, iron dextran can be given intramuscularly as well as intravenously. Intravenous therapy, you can give a total infusion dose or bolus dose. But it is important that whenever you give these injections or this intravenous therapy, you have to do a test dose. After giving a test dose only, you can start with intravenous therapy, because hypersensitivity reactions can occur with this drug. So it's very important that a test dose of 0.5 ml is injected. Okay, and if there is no reaction to test dose, you can start with the therapy. Okay, in this, total dose required is diluted in 500 ml of NS and it is infused slowly. Now you cannot randomly just give this parenteral iron preparations. You have to calculate how much iron is to be given to this patient, and there is a formula for the calculation in which you get the total iron requirement of the patient. So the iron requirement of the patient here is in milligrams, and the formula is, it is 4.4 into body weight into HB deficit. Okay, HB deficit means what should be the hemoglobin concentration of the patient and what is the actual hemoglobin concentration. The difference in these two is HB deficit. Okay, so this formula gives you the total iron requirement of the patient. Now uses of iron, naturally in anemia, iron deficiency anemia will give, but you also have prophylactic use of iron, that is pregnancy and in blood donors. Okay, because in pregnancy the demand for iron is increased, so prophylactically you give iron in these patients. Or the people who donate blood, even in them you need to give prophylactic dose of iron. Okay, therapeutic is treatment of iron deficiency. Then there is nutritional deficiency, anemia of infancy and pregnancy, or there is anemia due to chronic, acute or chronic blood loss, or in cases of menorrhagia, peptic ulcer, hookworm infestation. Hookworm infestation is also one of a very common condition which is responsible for iron deficiency anemia. In that case, you have to treat both the hookworm infestation as well as you have to give iron supplements. Okay, because just by giving iron supplements you will not improve the condition of the patient, because the main culprit is your hookworm infestation. So you have to treat even the hookworm infestation along with iron therapy. Now what are the adverse effects? Dose related is nausea, vomiting, epigastric discomfort, abdominal cramps, bloating, constipation, staining of teeth, metallic taste. Okay, and because of these adverse effects, many a time the compliance of the patient is decreased. Okay, now these can be minimized with dose reduction or by taking it with or immediately after meals. Generally we advise iron before food on an empty stomach, but if such adverse effects are going to affect the compliance of the patient, then you can advise for to take it immediately with or immediately after meals. One more adverse effect you can say is the black stools, but it is, patients must be advised and not to think of it as bloody stools. It is because of the iron that is eliminated from the body which gives black stools. Even flushing, urticaria, bronchospasm, even rarely anaphylaxis and death, these are related to parenteral preparations most commonly. The hypersensitivity, these are attributed to hypersensitive reactions to dextran, and that is why it is very important that you give a test dose before you start with iron therapy. Okay. Now even patients who have received iron dextran parenteral therapy previously even those are also at a higher risk that again subsequently they might get hypersensitive reactions. So test dose is very important. Now, as you also give this iron preparations parenterally, so you get some local reactions also. There can be pain at site of injection or pigmentation of skin, and that is why you're advised to give it by Z-track technique. Then sterile abscess, and you can get some systemic adverse effects by parenteral therapy, that is again fever, headache, flushing, palpitations, dyspnea, and lymph node enlargement. These are few of the adverse effects related to oral as well as parenteral iron therapy. Now, as you prescribe iron therapy, it is important that you know certain drug interactions, because these drug interactions, these are going to affect either your iron absorption, okay, they will improve or they will decrease the absorption. So it is important you should know all these interactions. Now, iron chelates in the gut with ofloxacin, norflox, penicillamine, methyl dopa, levodopa, all these drugs, iron chelates with these drugs, and these are going to affect the absorption of iron. It forms stable complexes with thyroxine, captopril, biphosphonates. Therefore, a gap of at least 2 to 3 hours is essential. Now, vitamin C, it increases absorption. How it increases absorption of iron? Because it converts this ferric form into ferrous form and thereby increases absorption. There are certain factors which are going to reduce the absorption of iron. This is T, calcium, zinc, as well as desferrioxamine. So desferrioxamine is one of the important drug that is used in cases of toxicity, iron toxicities. Okay. Now this is the last part, poisonings. This is generally seen in children, okay, smaller children. When there is lot of iron is consumed, lot of tablets are consumed, which is precipitated as vomiting, abdominal pain, hematemesis, okay, acidosis, convulsions, cyanosis, and finally shock, cardiovascular collapse, and even death can occur in cases of poisoning. Okay, so you have to be very cautious. And the antidote in this poisonings is desferrioxamine, which is a chelating agent. The treatment for this poisoning, first thing, you have to prevent the absorption of iron from the gut. You have to induce vomiting or perform gastric lavage. Okay, you can give milk orally because it is going to complex with the iron and it will prevent the absorption. Activated charcoal as such has no role in the treatment of this poisoning. Second is whatever iron is already bind and absorbed is to remove that absorbed iron, and the drug is, which is the antidote, that is desferrioxamine, which is a chelating agent. It is given intravenously. Okay. Calcium hydrate can also be used. There are supportive measures like fluid electrolyte balance are to be maintained, and acidosis can be corrected by IV infusion. So thank you. This was the end of the very important topic, very commonly encountered topic in our day-to-day life, that is iron deficiency anemia, in which we have dealt with the treatment part in which oral and parenteral iron preparations. Okay, thank you.